Cory Carlson is an executive coach, keynote speaker, podcast host, and the author of two impactful books. With a 20-year background in civil engineering, corporate sales, leading one of the most profitable divisions, Cory faced intense professional pressure that took a toll on his personal life. In this episode, he shares his journey of realizing the need for work-life balance after experiencing a significant personal and professional loss, and how he transformed his career to help leaders succeed both at work and at home. From initiating personal KPIs to developing a life-changing vision statement, Cory's story is one of resilience, hustle, and finding deeper purpose. Tune in as we delve into his pivotal moments, the evolution of his coaching business, and his strategies for balancing success and fulfillment in every aspect of life. Plus, get a sneak peek into his upcoming projects. As always, if you found value from this episode, please like and subscribe. And now, here's my conversation with Cory Carlson. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fulfillment Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Goulas, and this week, my guest is executive coach, keynote speaker, podcast host, and author of two books, Cory Carlson. Welcome, Cory.
Dave, thanks for having me on the podcast. Looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being here. If you would, for everyone, can you just give us like a high-level overview of your background and your business journey up until now?
Yeah, I'd say where I'm at right now is I help activate leaders to win at home and win at work. And the reason I'm so passionate about doing that is because I've lost at both places. And because I've lost at home and I was taking my identity to work, I was taking my identity to success and title and the boardroom and climbing that corporate ladder, it caused me to make poor choices at home. And then on the work side, there were times that I was having success, but maybe I didn't get the promotion or I ended up getting fired. And so I've lost at both places, but yet, Dave, I know that leaders can win at both home and work. It's not an either or, it's a both and. Like you can have success in the boardroom and in the family room. And I'm helping leaders do just that. And so from a career standpoint, it was 20 years in the civil engineering corporate sales. I sold civil engineering products, bridges, storm sewer, real sexy stuff like that. And it took me from Kansas City to Denver and then to eventually Cincinnati, where I live here in Cincinnati. About 12 years ago, I was in one of these moments where I was kind of in over my head. I had leapfrogged my boss. I was now managing him. I was managing people older than me. I was vice president of a $120 million division. And the reason that's of significance is because our division was the largest profitability contributor to the overall company. So lots of visibility, which is good and bad, right? When things were going well, I was the man. And when they weren't going well, I was paranoid. And so how that translated in my personal life is I started skipping the gym. I was skipping quiet time. I remember the kids playing on the floor and I had my laptop on my lap and I was kind of always working at night. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. So I hired an executive coach and it changed my life. And I know that sounds extreme, but one, it changed my life because that's now what I do for a living. But also just changed my life, Dave, because I zoomed out. I was looking at life differently. It wasn't just having a clean email inbox or having an amazing, P&L or profit and loss statement. But instead, it was about people. It was about purpose. It was about understanding my priorities. When I started getting better as a leader, as a husband, as a father, I started leading my team like a coach. I would talk about home and work. And when they got better, I was like, all right, there's something here. I want to go do this for a living. And so that began the journey of why I left corporate and then now do coaching and speaking full time.
Okay. Wow. Incredible story and a whole lot to unpack there. Okay. So corporate, long corporate career, very successful, leader of a most profitable division, a lot of pressure and whatnot. And you said in that time, you started to losing at home. And so many of our audience are entrepreneurs or high performers or executives and whatnot, right? So that's something that a lot of people can relate with. Why do you think that's so easy for high performers to fall into that trap? Because we've heard that story, we see it play out many times in terms of just going way too far towards that
Yeah.
imbalance.
Yeah, I think one main reason is a lot of people don't put a stake in the ground. Like it starts with a choice. Like, I am going to be successful at home and work. Like, you've got to make that choice, and not many people do. Then let's say you don't make that choice, and if you just kind of allow your identity, your priorities to become governed by somebody else, it's always going to go towards the work path, right? If you allow culture to define what success is to you, then it's going to be the size of your house, the type of car, what is your title, how much you make. If you allow your boss to decide what is important to you, then it's always going to be, you need to go to this happy hour, you need to go out when you traveling next, going out of town, like go, go, go. And so if we allow other people to determine where we find success, our value, our worth, it's always going to gravitate towards the work piece. At the same time, work has a lot of KPIs that are easy to track, right? What's revenue for this month? How many calls did I make? Home often never has KPIs unless you kind of put them in yourself. And an example in that, we put some KPIs, KPI key performance indicators are like how many dates we go on. My wife and I do 2 dates a month. I want to get a one-on-one with each of my kids every other week. I want to do a overnight with each of my kids per year. One overnight where just me and I have 3 kids. And so I want to have an overnight with each of my kids. So there's different KPIs I'm putting in my personal life to help me kind of run it. I don't want to say like a business and make it sound like our house is all, corporate-y. But if you don't measure, right, what you inspect gets respect. So if you aren't measuring some things in your personal life, they're not going to get the respect that some of your work measurements are getting.
Okay. And along this journey, was there a certain moment or like a breaking point when you realized, like, wow, I'm losing at home and I got to make a change? Was it one event where you just came to that conclusion you mentioned?
Well, unfortunately, I probably learned it a few times because I've had a few of those moments, right? As a mentor told me, wisdom is spelled WISDUMB because we gain it from our dumb mistakes we make. And that has been a lot of my story. So there were some different moments. I'd say one of my moments was before having a coach. And I kind of explained I was skipping the gym, skipping quiet time, and kids were kind of on the floor playing at night, and I wasn't engaging with them. I was working. I was trying to clean out that email inbox and make sure I get all my replies done. And that's when it kind of hit me like, do I want this for the rest of my life? Or do I want something different? And as I explored that, I wanted something different. I just didn't want to be one of those guys that was always working and never totally engaged with his kids. At the same time, I was hearing kind of that idea of, hey, your kids are only in your house for 18 years, then they're gone. And so that was kind of starting to impact me some because at the time when I hired my first coach, my daughter was about 9 years old. So I kind of knew, I'm halfway through this moment of if they're in my house for 18 years, she's at 9. And my other daughter would have been, 5. And then my, boy was 1. So 9, 5, and 1 is when I was started to hear this idea that 95% of the FaceTime we have with our kids is gone by the time they're 18. And the rest of their life is just kind of when we see them, if they live in another city 2 times a year, we only see them at Christmas. Those kind of, when I was getting all those statistics when my oldest was 9. And I was like, I want something different. And so that's when I hired a coach to get help. So that would be the first pivotal moment. The second pivotal moment is when I did in fact have a coach and loving the coaching experience. But there was this one particular time, Dave, I was at a dinner with a private equity group, we were owned by private equity, and we were being interviewed by a bunch of different private equity groups to be sold. At one of these dinners, this individual with the private equity company showed me his phone, a video on his phone of how loud his brand new Mercedes was. And it just hit me the wrong way in the standpoint. He wasn't very loud or engaged or excited when he talked about his wife and kids. But when he talked about his Mercedes, he was like super excited. And I was like, there's no way my job is to be president of sales and help this guy just make more and more money. That can't be why I'm on earth. There's got to be something more to it. And so that night, after I'm done with this dinner, I didn't say anything dumb at dinner. I didn't make a fool of myself, but it just was irritating me. But as I go outside, I make a phone call to my coach, and he awesome dude, and he answered after hours, and he's like, "Hey man, what's up?" I said, and I told him the story. I said, I've got to find something that's redeemable about each and every day. Like, this can't be my job, just helping guys make more money. And he's like, put together a personal vision statement. And I was like, what's a sentence going to do to make this better? And he explained why. And he also just said, hey, trust me. And I did. I mean, he's an awesome guy. So I trusted him. Over the coming days, I put together a vision statement. This vision statement I put together was about 8 years ago, and it's to connect people to greater performance and even more significant purpose. It's the same vision statement I have to this day. And Dave, why that's helpful, where that's value is, when I was president of sales, it wasn't just about making people more money or this particular private equity guy more money, but instead, when I traveled to Nashville to meet with the sales guy, or New York to see our sales guy, I was thinking, hey, how can I connect them to greater performance, even more significant purpose? And so performance for me is, how can I help them win at home and win at work? So when I travel with my sales team, I ask about home. Are you dating your spouse? You be intentional with your kids? I'd ask about work. What's your hit rate on your proposals? How are you blocking on time for business development? I was doing both. And then greater purpose. Well, if I could connect them to God, then awesome. But if I couldn't, because they weren't a faith-based person, hey, just serve others. When I saw them get better, and in fact, it helped our company, I was like, I want more of this. This is amazing. And so that was the next pivotal moment of, I want to double down and do this for a living and not just do it from a corporate setting.
Okay. And so when you had that experience, was it obvious to you that the next step was to become a coach?
It was obvious to me that that's what I wanted to do. I didn't have the guts. I still didn't have the guts. I kind of knew my burning desire, my purpose, but Dave, I at that time was making more money than I ever made. Why would I go start at zero to be a coach when I have 3 young kids? Is what I was telling myself. I kind of had some of my identity tied into my fancy title, being president of sales for a national company. I thought that was kind of cool. Why would I go start being a zero, kind of entry level coach? Like, that's the stuff I was wrestling with in my mind. Provision of money, kind of identity tied to a title. But over the course of coming months, God just kind of peeled back that onion and just kind of worked on me a little bit, understanding my provision isn't just from that employer. God's the provider. And understanding that, hey, we're going to be okay finding new insurance. Understanding that my identity shouldn't be tied to my job title. And it just, over the course of those months, it just kind of peeled back that onion to eventually I was mentally getting ready to make the jump. Still couldn't pull the trigger. Well, due to some things that went on during our private equity sale, we were unsuccessful. So our private equity group made some changes and I got fired. When I got fired, there were some other individuals fired as well. But when I got fired, I made a phone call to my spouse and I said, hey, babe, I got good news, bad news. Bad news is I just got fired. Good news is I have a 4-month severance package. Can I try coaching for a living? And she was like, yeah, you got 4 months and then get a real job. But I did. So, truth be told, I didn't have the guts to go do it on my own until I got fired. But once I got fired, I went and hustled and did my best to make it happen. There were moments I thought about throwing in the towel and going back and finding a corporate job for sure. But I kept up the fight, and thankfully, and thank the Lord, I was able to make it happen. And so that firing was 2016, and then stair-stepped into into coaching, and then went full time March 1st, 2020, which is a whole nother story.
In my world, a personal brand is invaluable. A year ago, Easy DC was brand new with just a couple of customers and no online presence. Then I found Hicks Marketing. They helped me amplify my personal brand, build a solid content strategy, publish my podcast, and 10x the number of customers we serve, all in less than 1 year. Do you need a marketing partner who gets you and cares about your success? Reach out to Alicia at hicksmarketing.com for more info and tell her Dave Goulas sent you.
Wow. So you got fired, and that's quite an ultimatum. You got 4 months to, to get your coaching business off the ground. So what was it like starting that out, right? Because you have this desire, a coach impacted your life. You saw the benefit, you knew what you had to offer, but what was it like actually getting out there and getting clients in the early days?
Yeah. I think for a listener, one thing I would say is, man, it's okay to stair step into something you want to do. And sometimes that's the wiser thing to do. I mean, I think there is a time where you got to cut the cord and go all in, right? Burn the ships. You've got to go all in. But man, a lot of times I'm reading things on social media and seeing, it seems like, one day you have this job, the next day you're going all into this new thing. That was scary and also unrealistic for us. It just didn't work financially. We had bills to pay, 3 young kids. So if there's a listener thinking about going for something, just almost giving yourself permission, it's okay to stair step into it. And so for me, Dave, I was able to find a job of consistent pay that was roughly 50%. It wasn't 50% of what I used to make, but it was this number of 50%. And if I could get my coaching up to that other 50% in the 4 months, I'm staying. I'm doing this. And so I did. So I didn't have to go try to fill the whole amount of money that I lost on my presence. I just went for 50%. So that's one thing I at least want to mention is if you're pursuing something, maybe you look to do a 25, 50 or some other percentage with some other source of money. Back to me climbing up to that 50% number. I mean, it was a lot of hustle, just a lot of coffees, a lot of meeting with people and sharing what I do. I got a lot of no's. I think one thing that was helpful to me, I didn't know this out of the gates. I've learned it and I share it with other aspiring coaches. Only one friend hired me to be his coach. I kind of thought everyone was going to hire me because I had a bunch of good friends and I still do. I mean, that's still a true statement. However, a lot of people don't want to hire their friends to be a coach or their friends to be their marketer or their friends to be whatever. It's just, it's kind of that awkward deal. I wish I would have known that sooner because then I would have went to ring one of my friends. And instead of asking them if they would be a client, instead just say, would you go introduce me to somebody else, like in a ring two, like their connections. And so that'd be the one thing I'd share to a listener is as you go try to grow your business, you may not get any clients out of your ring one. More than likely they're coming out of your ring two, but it's spend time with those ring one individuals that they introduce you to people in their ring. And so that was very helpful. It took me a little while to understand that. But yeah, I mean, growing the business out of the beginning was a lot of hard work, a lot of lessons learned, but man, it was cool and rewarding. And that's why I kept going after it. Seeing lives change for the better, I was like, I want more.
And you talked about, your experience too. Like, what was it like that first client where you made a significant impact in their life and you realized like, wow, this is happening. And
I mean, yeah, it was amazing. And it still is amazing. I mean, I do this now full time and I still will get a text. Just got a text just recently, Dave, where an executive had not been on a date in a long time with his wife. He'd been doing double dates and they'd gone to corporate events together, but not a one-on-one date. And I said, that's what you got to do. I mean, if you want to grow a relationship with your spouse, you've got to go on dates, and it can't just be all kids functions, and it can't just all be neighborhood parties. It's got to be one-on-one time. Anyways, they went, and he sent me a picture of him and his wife on a date. And I love that. That's amazing when that starts to take place, or when I have an employee, or not employee, a client owns a company and is getting burned out. And so we went through the vision statement exercise that my coach had me do, and it significantly changed him as well. So for anybody listening, if you're experiencing burnout, or you're having some similar situations I've had, I encourage you, put together a personal vision statement. My first book, called Win a Home First, I share the process to build one. You use 5 different P's, and it's passions, it's personality, it's problems you've overcome, it's where do you see potential, and then provision. What have you been provided for in your life? And then you take those 5 P's and you just kind of start writing down things of there, and then you put together a sentence. That's a very kind of gross, brief description of the process. I go more in depth in my book, Win Home First, that listeners can check out on Amazon or Audible, or send me a note, and I'll send you the chapter for free. I mean, I just want to get people getting help with vision statements, because it gives you purpose.
And a big focus of your work too is with the winning at home piece, and you talk so much about helping working parents. So the way life and society's evolved right now too, in terms of, so many more options, so much more complex. We think about what kids' sports are today compared to where they were even 10 or 20 years ago. And then obviously it's very rare to have, most homes they have 2 parents there, both parents are working, right?
Right.
So when you see like family life and just life in general evolve to be so complex, do you see that as such a big problem in terms of, like you said, the spouse is going on dates? Like that seems to be one of the areas that just gets sacrificed in terms of taking care of the kids, then taking care of the work activities, that it's easy for people to just neglect their partner relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you said a bunch of things there. We could dive deep into some of those different comments that you made, for sure. But as far as, I think that one of the first things to go is dates with executives, because they're usually not planned. They're usually not scheduled, which is a miss. And on Saturday afternoon, it's kind of like, hey, you want to go on a date tonight? Well, they don't have the babysitter lined up. Someone may have a headache. And it's kind of like, no, let's not go on a date. Let's just stay in and just do pizza. And it just continues to happen. Dave, I'd say another reason people don't like to go on dates is because dates can get boring, because all we talk about is kids' logistics. Like, who is taking, Johnny to practice? Who's taking Susie to dance? Kind of like all, that's what happened. So what my wife and I did, and I share this with tons of different people, and we didn't come up with this idea. We've heard it. But there's kind of like 2 dates that we want to have. And one is a logistics date, and one's a love date. And the logistics date is usually on Sunday nights. We usually kind of have a bottle of wine. We both pull out our phones, and we go through the whole week. And what I love about it is we talk about who's taking, our kids to and from practice on Tuesday. And we all, the weather's gonna be nice on Wednesday. Let's grill out. But what's also cool about it, Dave, is I'm sharing some cool parts about my week and letting her know. She's sharing items about her week and lets me know. And maybe the kids have an activity I didn't know about, and I get to learn about it. So on Sunday, we plan the whole week, and then even hit on the weekend. What do we want to do? Maybe we do a date. Maybe we do a double date. Maybe we're having people over. And then come about Thursday, we kind of revisit that of, hey, what are we doing for the weekend? But then when we go on a date that weekend, we don't have to talk about carpooling. We already did it. We've addressed it. Now we can just talk and hang out and kind of talk about dreams and what's fun. And that's the big difference. And so by separating the logistics from an actual date has been life-giving to us. And I encourage any listener to do that, is to kind of do a logistics date on Sunday nights. It helps you to get connected on each other's lives. And there are no last minute, usually spontaneous, hey, can you go pick up Junior at practice in 15 minutes? It's like, no, I can't. I'm on a call kind of thing. And that's just been super helpful.
Okay. All right. So, well, along with the coaching business that you've grown, I noticed you do a whole lot of personal branding. You big focus on LinkedIn. You've written 2 books. You have a podcast, a very successful podcast, top 1.5% on Listen Notes, which is not easy to do. Is that something that you just started with the coaching, in terms of realizing you had to do that type of thing to grow your profile in your coaching business?
No, I not just start. I mean, I've been, doing it for a while. I mean, there's new tweaks and things I'm doing along the way. My first book I wrote in 2019. It's called Win at Home First. And kind of, as we mentioned, I wrote it because I lost at home first, and I see other people do that as well. So I put together a book that helped me get my kind of life figured out. And so the book Win at Home First has 4 parts. First part is on you, understand your identity. Second's on marriage. Third's parenting. Fourth part's work. But when I wrote that book, I hired a writing coach to help me. I'm a big fan of coaches. Obviously, I am a coach, but anytime I go do something, I want a coach. I know everything's free on the internet, but I want a guide. I don't want to spend tons of hours watching videos of how to do something or learn, because time is money. And I want someone to help me accelerate my learnings into application. Plus, I can learn some of their watch outs along the way. So in 2019, when I wrote a book, that writing coach says you need a website, because when people go read your book, they're going to want to go find the author. So that began me launching my website, CoryCarlson.com, and I started doing blogs. Then I needed to kind of point people to the website. So then I started dabbling in social media. And then, of all social medias, for me, I'm not saying this is the recipe for everybody. I just love LinkedIn. That's where my clients hang out. I like the format. I like learning from there, where some of the other social medias I don't connect with as well. And so I just started posting on LinkedIn. And then through LinkedIn, that's how you and I met. So through LinkedIn, I found friends, I found clients, I became a client from individuals on LinkedIn. And then it just became this deal where now, for the last, I don't know how long, but I post every day, Monday through Friday. Every once in a while, I'd kind of do a random post on a Saturday. I never post on, I don't like to use that word, because I'm sure if you went through my file, I may have done something on a Sunday. But I like to do digital Sabbath on Sunday, where I'm not doing any emails or social media. And so, yeah, I've been very active. 1 post a day, Monday through Friday, occasional Saturdays. And it's been helpful. And, I think part of it, and this is for listeners as well, not only do I like to post on LinkedIn to try to attract clients, but it's also just to add value to people's lives, even if I never see them or get $1 from them. It's, hey, can I help someone? If they see a post about dating their spouse, or hanging out with your kids, or doing quiet time, or having one-on-ones with your employees, whatever it is, they do something and it changes the life, great. Hallelujah.
Okay. And what made you decide to start the podcast?
I love podcasts, listening to them. And every time I listen to a podcast, I would hear about how someone grew their business. And I was like, awesome. How did you do it and stay married? How did you do it and not put on 100 pounds? Kind of like, how did you do success at work? I mean, what happened at home and your faith journey? So I was like, well, I'll launch my own podcast, and I'll ask leaders, how do they win at work and win at home? And so I launched it April 2020. And I think you said at the beginning, but I think we're about 175 episodes in. And, I can have a love-hate relationship with my podcast, as we kind of talked a little bit before we hit record. But I love it because there's been some incredible conversations, and just, oh my goodness, like some of the people I've had the opportunity to talk to, is incredible because I have a podcast. And I love that. But then some of the hard parts have been, along the way, I was tying my identity to the success of the podcast. How many downloads I had, or top 1.5%. And probably about 18 months ago, I just in one of my quiet times felt convicted that I need to hit pause on the podcast. I was getting too wrapped up in it. If I had a lot of downloads and I thought I was the man, if I didn't have any downloads, then didn't think I was the man. So I hit pause on the podcast for 6 weeks, and then at the end of that 6 weeks, and I just kind of felt like I got the green light from God to go back to the podcast if I so wanted. So I went back, and I've just been doing it more, I don't know, call for fun as opposed to for my identity. I have not checked my download numbers in months. For those listening, you go to Libsyn. Well, at least that's where I would go. Libsyn.com to see what your downloads are. And I just don't go there anymore. I don't, more than likely, I will be disappointed. No matter what the number is, I'll be disappointed because I'll be like, why wasn't it one more than that? So anyways, but I have enjoyed it. It's been cool to learn from other people of different habits or disciplines that they put in place to help them be successful at work and at home. Because it's hard.
Do you think that's helped your coaching business too? The fact that you just get to interact and see so many apart from just your clients, just all those podcast interviews and learning from others?
Absolutely. There's some tips I will get from a guest on the podcast, and I can turn around and quickly use that on a client just because it was helpful. It was impactful to me, for sure.
Outstanding. Okay, and then with all you've accomplished with your coaching business and everything else and the books, like what's next for you?
Man, I feel like a third book is brewing. I don't necessarily even know what it'd be. The joke is with my books is I usually, if I have a stumble, I write a book. So Win at Home First, I wrote because I lost at home. Rise and Go, my second book is, I wrote because I fell down. I went all into coaching on March 1st, 2020, as I mentioned. Well, then COVID happened. And I lost 35% of revenue right out of the gates because of the stay-at-home mandate that we had back in 2020. And therefore, speaking engagements were canceled. 35% of my revenue vanished. And I know some listeners, they lost 100% of the revenue, or they lost a loved one. And I'm sorry for all that. But for our family, 35% was a lot. And what was going to happen to the other 65%? So we were nervous, we were scared, and I was mad. I was frustrated. Even in God, just like, hey, I thought we were doing this together, and what happened? However, over those months of the summer of 2020, I just got exposed to different content that helped me get back up. I shared with my clients along the way, and after they liked it and it helped them, I was like, well, there's a book here. And so Rise and Go's got 20 chapters. First 10 are to give you the courage to get back up, and then the next 10 chapters give you the confidence to move forward. And so the chapters are pretty short with questions for application. And so, Dave, I say all that to say, if I write a third book, that probably means, something happened in Cory's life. But I don't have that yet. So maybe, but we'll see. So I'd say that's a big one. And then I love doing one-on-one coaching. It's a lot of fun. However, there's only a limited amount of people you can impact that way. So I've got a few group programs that I'm in the process of launching. And so that would be a new thing. I've done some local masterminds, and I still have one going where I've got 12 business owners / leaders here in Cincinnati we meet with once a month. But now I'm going to do some virtual ones as well. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. All right. And if people want to get in touch with you and learn more about your coaching practice or some of the other products that you offer, what's the best way people can get in touch with you?
Website, Cory M, as in Michael, Carlson.com. It's got all kinds of information there, blogs and information there. But LinkedIn, on social media, connect with me on LinkedIn. Love to learn more about the listener and reach out.
Okay. And we'll link all that in the show notes for everybody.
Sweet.
All right. Well, Cory, thank you so much for being here and taking the time. We really appreciate it. And that is all the time we have for now. We will see you next time.